Well, hello, and welcome from the Fall School of Business. We are pleased to welcome you to our first 2020 webinar. This is the first one of a series that we're going to be doing on a weekly basis, just with a couple different topics ranging from leadership to project management and human relations. So that's actually the field we'll be highlighting today, is the field of HR. My name is Colleen Drake, and I am a grad admissions counselor with the MBA program. And today we have joining us Tim States, who is the Director of Work Life Engagement here at Anderson University. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Colleen. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking time.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thanks for you taking time in this busy season and just so many things that are hitting the university. Thank you for taking time to give back and be willing to share. Like we said, we wanted to spotlight HR just because of how important the field is right now and how important the communications are within human resources at this time. If you wouldn't mind, Tim, could you tell us first a little bit maybe about your background and how you found your way into HR?
Sure. Certainly not a direct path. I am like most people. I think there are some people that maybe set out to have a career in human resources and they make it in that. I often find that people come through that in many different ways. I've had a lot of different jobs in the past, and some of those have had HR related pieces to them. I was previously the court administrator for Madison County, so all the courts within Madison County, the felony courts. And that definitely had an HR piece before I came back to AU. So I think there were snippets along the way that made me think, this is something that I could be interested in. This is something that I could do. Or if I had kind of positive reinforcements from folks that would say, you do that pretty well, that piece pretty well, that kind of reinforces us to push in a certain direction. All of those for me, I think, combined to make me think this is something that I could do. And when this position came open at AU, I thought this really is going to mix a bit of my past with some of the technology pieces that I've had as well on the AU campus, because HR, like everything else, is becoming more and more technical in the way that it's managed. So a combination of that prior experience, some positive reinforcement in that direction, a background as an undergrad in social work, and then a graduate degree in public administration, all of those kind of went together for me to kind of say, this is a job I think I might be ready for.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. Well, how would you say right now, your role has been changing throughout the situation that we've been seeing?
Yeah, with COVID-19.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I was on a conference call this morning with HR directors from different universities around the state and in part of Michigan as well. We're all beyond policy. We're all in a place where we're relying on each other to help figure it out. And we're looking for guidance from the Department of Labor. We're looking for guidance from unemployment. There are so many factors in there. There's, those 3 bills that are coming through right now that are going to try to help get some relief and to help employees feel like that they're supported, especially when they're in difficult situations at home. But it's one thing to create that. There's a whole nother layer of interpretation. Do we fit that definition, or do we not fit that definition? Is that something we can get access to in terms of those funds? Can we not? Those are all the pieces that I think all of us are struggling to have defined for us. So right now is a really interesting moment. The different HR folks that I was talking to this morning were spread out. Some were in classrooms they took over classrooms as kind of a space that they could hang out and be. Some are at home. But it kind of shows that everyone's trying to figure it out as quick as they can, and we're all really, really collaborating with one another to just help each other out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, when it's such a broad spectrum, of issues that are arising from, like you said, people working from home to making sure people are taken care of with healthcare and that everyone's needs are being met. So there's just so many varieties of projects
Hmm.
How do you stay on task in human relations and in managing all of those projects?
Yeah, I think that's a skill set that it's just required. It's such a um, legally driven profession where you have deadlines and timelines and reports and things that have to be accurate and timely. And in the midst of that, those still continue even though we're in COVID-19. That hasn't changed. We still have to pay people. We still have to
Mm.
know what deductions to take out. All of those things have to keep going in this environment. For me, I am a person that makes a lot of task lists just because I know I have to track it. I have to, I have lists and notes for me to kind of keep track of things that do the same thing on my computer as well. There comes a point though where, especially in this situation, where you're so looking for guidance that you almost have to just narrow your focus and say, what's the most important today, and do that next thing.
Yeah.
You could be overwhelmed by trying to search every potential thing that could impact the organization and lose sight of the fact that day-to-day things just need to continue.
Mm-hmm.
And so prioritizing that and doing the next thing for me, and knowing what that next thing is, has kind of helped keep me somewhat focused.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. And that's so helpful. So not to be overwhelmed
Hmm.
by things and almost have a spirit of fear as you're
Right.
going through it. Yeah. I thank you for that. That's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about, what an HR strategy looks like. A lot of our students that are incoming, that's what they're really interested in, is
Hmm.
kind of building a strategy that encompasses area from FMLA to, diversity and inclusion. What does that look like? And how do you approach that within higher ed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes first thing you have to get back to is to find out what is that great thing you want to get done. What is the great thing that you want your organization to accomplish? And that should drive it from the beginning. Um, we're an organization that strives to educate people for a life of faith and service. And if that's our mission, then we should really figure out in this office, how can we get people to be on board with that mission and carry that out, and not let all the HR jargon and policies get in the way of that. We can, if we're not careful, I think we can overload people and almost try to treat people like they're children. When as there's a HR, the main talent person for Netflix, her name is Patty, and I watched her speak one time, and she was great because she said, everyone that comes to your door is a fully formed adult. Just remember that. And everybody's got rent to pay, and everybody has, you know, family needs and issues and health needs and mental health needs. And we're all trying to do that. At the same time, we're all trying to show up at the same place every day and get that same mission done. And I said, so for me, I've wanted to kind of create an environment where we stay in compliance legally, but we give ourselves the most room and the most flexibility to carry out that mission, and at the same time care for one another and build a community around that care. And so FMLA is important. You have to comply with it. We have to have equity in our whole, the way we pay people needs to be equitable. We have to be fair. We can't discriminate. We want a workforce that's diverse. And so we have to continue to have all of those as goals. But I think there's an older way to do that and a newer way to do that. And maybe in our past, we have created such ironclad policies or thick manuals and books, best practices, and we've hit people over the head with that stuff. So to the degree that we can figure out what the mission is, create good people and good teams around that mission, and I think that's really the goal that I try to do.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I hear creating good teams and bringing and inviting a variety of voices to the table. Yeah, that's awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you. So if you wouldn't mind, as we're kind of navigating this situation, can you talk a little bit more about the steps that you've had to take through COVID-19, and maybe someone that's new to human resources, what should they expect as they were going into a new role? Maybe they're new to HR and something like this came into and just kind of dropped into their lap. What should they expect? Well, I guess what's being expected of you from the university standpoint, and how are you, what advice, I guess, would you give a new person to HR who might be handling something like this?
Yeah. The first thing I think I would say is start with, in any situation like this. So we're in a brand, like I said, we're in a brand new space and we're kind of off policy in some ways. Sit down and make a list of your unknowns. What is it that you don't know that you need to know? The new Family First Act talks about being an organization with at least 500 people before some of that. If you're below 500, you're impacted by that. If you're above 500, it's not so much that you're impacted by that. So if you don't know exactly how to count your employees, our students' employees, is everyone that gets a W-2 considered an employee? And so I need to count them toward my count. Start looking at making a list of all the things that you're not sure about, your unknown list, and then try to figure out how to answer those questions. And that might be that, like I did this morning, you jump on a group of your colleagues and you video conference and say, what do you know? What can you tell me? And today we helped each other fill in the gaps in a couple of those areas. There's others that we need guidance for. But I think find some people that are like you and in a situation like you that you can talk to is very important. Making that list of what you don't know is important because it's going to help you to know where to go next. And then what can you anticipate? How long can you continue to pay folks? When that can't happen, or people can't remote work from home, or if people begin to get sick and are quarantined, what has to happen in each of those stages? And we have to be ready to answer those questions for the administration and for cabinet here at AU. Once we start seeing all of these different pieces fall into place, what's going to be our response to that? Where's the line between what you're able to do and what you should do? There's a line there of sometimes you're going to do things that is just the right thing for you to do. And so you have to begin to think about that as well. And those are the difficult decisions. The second thing I would say is develop a team. We have a huddle group that we're huddling 3 or 4 times a week to run these kind of scenarios by each other. And it's a person from each discipline on campus. So, make sure that you have a team of folks that you're working with on the inside of the organization, because you certainly won't know everything. I certainly don't know everything about the organization, and I need those other voices, at least from my perspective, to help make good decisions.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for navigating that for us and giving us a little bit of insight, into your world, how you're going through the situation, and how you're just having to meet everyone's needs at the same time, but also take care of yourself mentally and, make sure that you're still meeting the requirements of the university while inviting other people to the table. So thank you for sharing about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe one last question, maybe something a little bit more on the positive side of things. Tell me about what you love about HR. What should people know that might be interested in maybe continuing their education in human resources? What do you love about the subject and working in that area?
Yeah. For me, I think I love figuring out ways to give people permission to step up and excel either in the work that they do. That could be professional development, creating opportunities to develop the group as a whole. I don't know very many people in HR that love the strict policy and the payroll piece and the compliance piece, having compliance with our 403B, which is our retirement accounts, and compliance around unemployment. There are so many reports and things that need done, and I don't really know of anyone in this field that I talk to that says, man, I love that part of the job. It isn't there. There's probably a few, but I think for the most part, it's that ability um, to build good teams, to build a culture. That's been my focus, is to build a compassionate culture where we look out for each other. We look out for the students that we're here for, and to the degree possible, give everyone latitude and permission to do that and to join in on that mission. To me, that's the part that at the end of the day, if I feel like I've impacted another person in that way, it's been a good day.
Yeah. And I think you have done that so well, here at AU, just to be
Thank you.
changing the culture, developing it, and even extending vacation times, looking at remote options for employees. Can you talk a little bit about maybe since you've been here, some of the changes you've made here at AU and maybe what you have been excited about here at AU?
Sure. I think, right away, it was important to create a little bit of a different way to develop each other. The old school performance evaluations, we would do those once a year at the end of the year, um, often way beyond, you're almost trying to remember back, what did I do in that year, and what are the things I need to work on? And if there was ever any behavior in there, you didn't address it right when the behavior was happening, but we're waiting to the end of the year to address that behavior. And then when you get those evaluations, how honest are you being and your supervisor being? Is it a true reflection of that person and their contribution? And what maybe one of the most helpful things for me before I came into this role is that I was just an employee. And all the years in my life that I've worked and been an employee and felt the employee experience really prepared me to help shape one that I know that I would like as an employee a little bit better. And so having not been in HR and kind of coming into it later in life in a way, I think was instructive for me. So we did away with the employee evaluations and the annual evaluations in general, and moved toward goal setting, that we set goals each year. What's something you can do for your department, the university, or your community, a professional development goal, and a well-being goal. And then once we were able to take that information from folks setting their goals, we were able to create a series of professional development sessions called Raven to Raven. And that's where we ask each other to do professional development for the rest of us. And so if you have an area of expertise, maybe it's communication or personal finance or whatever it is, we try to line that up and then allow people to attend those sessions, and they're open to faculty, staff, and retirees. So we just did one on communication, and we had about 40 people in the room. And it was great. It was a great opportunity to be able to learn a skill from actually people within the university that have that skill set. So I think that whole Raven to Raven professional development piece is big. The other is to just kind of realign our benefits in a way that we know we can't always pay people what they're worth, but we can try to be as helpful as we can for them to have flexible time with families, create policies that allow people to address those situations that are difficult for them to handle outside of work. And when a family member gets sick or a parent is sick and you're caring for a parent, those FMLA situations, how can we adjust to those and still try to pay people so that they're not forced with just the option of I have to quit because that's the only option I have. We can say, wait a minute, maybe you can just modify what you're doing a little bit and still continue to contribute as a good employee. So to the degree that I've been able to do that, that's been a more happy part of the job.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's wonderful. So, and it just encompasses so many people's talents, allows them, like you said, kind of a seat at the table to really recognize their needs, recognize what they're good at, and invite, sharing across the campus too, which is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just absolutely pleased to have you. Thank you for kind of giving a little bit of background about HR, your experience, It just really helps even students who might be interested in the field to see what your average day would be like, see what you're going through throughout COVID-19 and as you're navigating this whole situation. So thank you again. If you're considering an MBA and really would like more information, send us an email today at mba@anderson.edu, and we would love to hear from you. And do look for our next webinar next Tuesday, and have a great afternoon. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Colleen. Bye.
Bye.